U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff policies now at the hands of the Supreme Court, whose decision on their legality may be out today. A court ruling against the White House could result in up to $150 billion in refunds to importers. At the heart of the case is whether the Trump administration had the legal authority to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA. The court may also choose to grant the government limited powers under the IEEPA or require limited repayment. Nearly 1,000 businesses are involved in the case, including major players Costco, Xerox, Puma, Reebok, Bose, Goodyear tires, and Revlon cosmetics. Nick Harper's watching developments for CNN live from Washington, D.C. Nick, what can we expect if there should be a ruling today?
Well, this could potentially be hugely consequential for the Trump administration, really a major test of his presidential powers. It could impact as well the global economy, and it could, as you mentioned, tee up that $150 billion refund fight. So we'll find out in about 3 hours' time from now. That's when the Supreme Court will be issuing opinions. Now, it could be on tariffs, but we won't know in advance until it happens. The Supreme Court heard arguments from both sides back in November, and they were expected to come to a decision quickly rather than waiting until the end of their session that normally happens around June, July time. And at that November hearing, those justices seemed sceptical of Trump's power to unilaterally impose tariffs. So they might strike them down, even though 6 of the 9 justices are conservative-leaning. Remember, Donald Trump used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and that could be his undoing. Now, usually, that act has been used in the past by past presidents for national emergencies. For example, freezing adversaries' assets and imposing tariffs on a particular adversary rather than just sweeping broad tariffs on all countries. So, simply put, has he overstepped his authority? That's what the Supreme Court is deciding. And if they rule against him, it might not actually be that easy for companies to get their refunds. Legal experts and business groups are thinking that the Trump administration is likely to find workarounds because tariffs have been central to his economic policy, really to his foreign policy as well. So he'll want to try and find any way he can to keep those in place.
Nick, also possibly testing his presidential powers, protests in American cities involving 2 separate incidents in Minneapolis and Portland involving U.S. immigration enforcement agents. What's the latest on that?
That's right. We've seen an increase in protests overnight in Portland, also here outside the White House last night, and of course in Minneapolis. That is where on Wednesday an ICE officer shot a female driver. The ICE agents and the Department of Homeland Security afterwards accused her of domestic terrorism. They said that she was weaponizing her vehicle, trying to run over the ICE agents on the ground. But the local community has been disputing that claim. They say that she was murdered by the agent. And Democrat state and city officials say that they've now been blocked from the investigation, that the FBI, a federal authority, has taken over the investigation, and they are calling for transparency. J.D. Vance, the vice president, has said that that ICE agent is protected by absolute immunity. But then on top of that, on Thursday, we got news that an ICE agent had shot and wounded 2 people during a traffic stop. The Homeland Security Department has said that they were trying to run over the agent as well, and that's why the agent fired. But again, there seems to be that lack of cooperation between state officials in Portland who say that the FBI will now be leading the investigation. And therefore, state officials in Oregon are saying that they have very little information. It's all stoking fears, really the presence of more federal officers on the streets. There is that fear that actually they're making things less safe. And what we could see, as many city groups have been warning, that with that increase of federal agents heavily armed on the streets, it could lead to the possibility of more violence or maybe even more shootings like the one we've seen over the last few days.
Thanks. Nick Harper there reporting live for CNN from Washington, D.C.